Mr. Chairman. There's been some confusion where this property is actually located. Right here is West Irvine, and you can see it turned. Where her finger is the end of the improved portion of West Irvine. Anything to the west of that you see is unopened and unimproved at this point in time. The red area is the project area for the rezoning, and then everything that you see right there is the subdivision area request. So that is the location of the proposal that we are talking about at this time. The applicant is requesting preliminary subdivision approval for 93.4 acres, lot 1, which is highlighted in red, 13 acres, and lot 2, 79.40 acres. The applicant is also requesting rezoning of proposed lot 1, the 13-acre tract, from R1 single-family residential to R3 multifamily. Currently, the property does not have frontage on a publicly maintained right-of-way. Before any development can begin on either lot 1 or 2, the unopened portion of the West Irvine Street right-of-way and I'm going to skip ahead here, the platted proposed street will have to be constructed to city standards. This request conforms to the City of Florence subdivision regulations. The proposal also conforms to the City of Florence comprehensive plan and the West Florence neighborhood plan, both pre and post condition. Departmental comments.
Just the highlights or
let's go ahead and read them all if you don't mind, Mr. Smith.
Engineering would like to see more info. The location as well as the existing of the possible city street abutting this property is questionable. This property is approximately half mile from an existing improved and maintained public street. A traffic analysis should be performed to determine the impact of vehicular traffic resulting from the proposed development.
Ms. Smith, if I can interrupt you at this time, should we, as just a comment, it's my understanding it's in the purview of the Planning Commission to request a traffic study as well.
That's correct.
Be able to make a determination as to, even if it's past preliminary for final subdivision.
That's correct.
That time period. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Building concurs. Water concur an existing 6-inch cast iron water main from West Irvine Avenue may serve the domestic needs of lots 1 and 2 depending upon its actual relative to future development plans, and may have to be relocated, increased in size, or looped to adequately supply fire protection. An existing 42-inch gravity sewer interceptor main runs along much of Lot 2's perimeter. However, there is no sewer than Lot 1. Lift stations or main extensions with easements may be required at the expense of the owner or developer. Natural gas may be available upon proper application from owner/developer. An existing gas main is located on West Irvine Avenue. Electricity concur a 15-foot easement will be required along both sides of the proposed right-of-way. Street, no interest. Fire. Before property development, I recommend a study to be done to assure there is adequate water for fire protection in this area. If buildings are to be sprinkled, there will also be a need for a fire hydrant to be within 100 foot of the fire department connections. Police, no interest. Planning, there should be a plat notation on the final plat that states before construction of Lot 1 or Lot 2, the unopened portion of the West Irvine Street right-of-way and the platted proposed street shall be constructed to city standards set forth in the City of Florence subdivision regulations. Preliminary subdivision approval and the requested rezoning subject to satisfaction of all departmental comments is recommended. Preliminary subdivision approval is valid for a time frame of 6 months. If the rezoning request is recommended by the Planning Commission to the Florence City Council, a legal description of the property to be rezoned will need to be provided in Word format for advertisement purposes. The adjoining property owners were notified, as well as a community meeting held last Thursday night. Councilwoman Simmons has given us a list of the questions that have been provided to her, and I'm going to hit the high points on these. Traffic is a major issue that came out of the community meeting the other night. Again, a traffic study is going to be required. What benefit will West Florence see of this? As with any development, you know, there's always a chance for equal and more investment in the community. Is this a UNA developmental project? UNA is not affiliated with this project. This project is a privately owned proposal as well as privately maintained. So are they wanting to purchase our homes? There's been no discussion at this point about the developer buying a home from a private citizen. If that were to take place, that would be a private party agreement between the developer and the homeowner.
Very good. At this time, for the members of the audience, as to what the Planning Commission does in this particular situation, there are two requests. One is for a preliminary subdivision approval, and then a request for rezoning. Preliminary subdivision approval, with subdivision approval being the purview of the Planning Commission. At this phase, preliminary is only to give the developer an idea that a concept of a subdivision could be appropriate in a particular area. You've heard many departmental comments that would need to be met, that when it came to general or final subdivision approval, if they were not met or complied with, then they would not be able to get final, general, or final subdivision approval. This is a first step to let a developer know whether or not in concept it's an appropriate thing to investigate and do engineering of, and essentially give an idea if it's in the right place or could be in the right place before you start spending money on engineering as well, and surveys and different type of things. Now, rezoning is a different animal. When it comes to the Planning Commission, rezoning, in this case from R1 single family residential, for this 13 acres to be multifamily residential, or essentially I would assume apartments of some sort, or we'll hear from the developer what the proposal is. Now, we are only a recommending body to the City Council. The City Council has the final decision as to whether or not rezoning is a true and proper thing based on our recommendation, either pro or con as to that. So that's where we are. At this point, I'll ask for some comments or questions from the department, from the commission. Then I'll open up the floor and I'll first hear from the developer. Then after the developer finishes, I'll be happy to take questions or concerns from members of the audience. And when we get to that point, the only thing that I'd ask, if you hear a concern mentioned once, try not to labor that point over again, if you would. We are listening and we are going to be concerned with it. But if it concerns you, let us know. We need to know. That's what that's what this forum is about as well. So first I'll start with some questions or comments from the commission for the department. I do think in this particular case, since we are talking about opening up part of a community and part of a district that has not been opened yet, and the unopened roads, I think a traffic study, in my opinion, is very important to see what the impact of the additional traffic coming down an open West Irvine would have on the community. I also think, I'm not going to speak for the developer, but I think it'd be important for the developer to know as well. So as they plan their roads and they plan out how they will design the subdivision itself. So that's my initial comment on it. It's obvious that there are several things that have to be done. Another point of information for the community, if you don't know, in the city of Florence, you are not allowed to build a house on a septic tank. So sewer would actually have to also be improved. There would have to be public improvements in this particular area. So with that, I'll be quiet and let other commission members make any comments or have questions for the department at this time.
I'd like to, I want to thank Ms. Simmons for having our meeting last week. It was very informative. Citizens obviously got an opportunity to hear what we're hearing tonight and much more, and I appreciate the questions and the answers to those as well. Obviously, traffic flow is concerning. You just spoke to that. One question that I've heard since then that might be helpful to know is I had a citizen that asked me, or I guess is concerned that there might be another option as far as access to that property, and I haven't asked him one, and that was off of the end of Mobile Street, and I haven't looked at it, haven't asked, but I just wanted to just pose that as a possibility. Has any consideration been given to that?
There, at some time in history, in the past decades, there was actually access from Mobile Street. It ran pretty much parallel with Cypress Creek. And it was used as an access, I believe, for sanitation and some other public use vehicles. It has not been used in some time. I know the grade from Mobile Street into this area is fairly steep, where it's, development has taken place adjacent to it. That was one of the questions that we got concerning access during construction, not necessarily full-time access. I think it's something that if a traffic study, it sounds like a traffic study is probably going to be recommended. And also, as plans move from the conceptual stage to more what we would say on paper, they can begin to look at if there are alternatives into the property. I know for what we asked for, the city on behalf of the Planning Commission at this point to make that determination, we wouldn't be able to. But I think as we move into their engineered plans and actually start looking at topography and lay of the land, then there could be a determination made if there's access other than Irvine.
Good question. Thank you.
Looking pieces there next to the orangey brown color right here is TVA.
What is that zone, that brown zone? Is that R2? Okay.
Residential, smaller
Small lot.
lots, yeah.
Okay, very good.
Do we know, historically, was there ever use on this property of any sort? It's just always been more or less wild area.
Okay. Yes, Doctor.
Melissa, since this is development along adjacent to a stream, do we need to put something here about that, or should we assume the developer will comply?
Well, first of all, he would be required to comply for several reasons. First of all, anything over an acre in construction in the state of Alabama requires a permit from the Alabama Department of Environmental Management, also known as ADEM. So we already know that permitting process will have to take place. Also, the impact of development obviously is going to be looked at by its footprint. This is a very large piece of property, over 90 acres, with the development sitting on 13 acres. And not all of that 13 acres is going to be built out or improved. There will be, green spaces as well. So 13 acres actually does not comprise the entire built environment. But during construction, there will have to be precautions taken that there is not runoff due to construction activities. And then, of course, there are stormwater calculations that are always required of any subdivision of property that are reviewed by our engineering department, so that runoff post-development is not greater than runoff that exists beforehand.
We don't have a topographic map, but could we get a general description? Because I believe that the creek area, Cypress Creek to the north there particularly, is way below.
Way.
Pretty big bluff there.
Yes, this property sits, I don't know its elevation, but it sits in relationship to the creek. It sits in a much higher elevation than the creek itself.
I'm a little ways from home tonight. Thanks for this opportunity. I'm with a company called Mallory Evans Development. We're a 60-plus-year-old family-owned family company, really, all related to design and construction that's located in the metro Atlanta area. One of the things we do and have done for over a decade is to build apartments specifically geared and managed for college students. And we seek college towns to build our communities in. And that's what we're proposing to do here. We're really excited by this opportunity because obviously UNA and you have other colleges in the area too. but there is not what we call in our business purpose-built student housing. It's sort of a new trend in off-campus student living, with the product specifically designed to meet the needs of students, and we manage it and operate it to meet the needs of those students. So we're about giving students a great place to live, but also helping them be successful as college students. We think there's a terrific opportunity here because that product type does not exist. And we would be building that half mile of road extension, which will serve the balance of the property in the future.
Speaking of the development of the road, you hear some concerns about traffic. It's more than likely, if this commission decides to grant even preliminary subdivision approval, that moving forward, that there would need to be a traffic study. Would the developer have any objection against that?
I understand completely.
Okay, looking at the other departmental comments, we've already addressed the road situation. You understand the necessary extensions of sewer into the property.
Yes, sir.
All at the developer's cost. Okay. Also, the same thing, natural gas may be available, but upon application from the owner and developer, that would also be at the developer's expense.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. You have any trouble with easements, utility easements, as recommended by the city?
I don't think so, sir.
So would it be correct for me to say that should approval be granted, you would be willing and to meet all departmental comments requested by the city of Florence?
With one or two clarifications, if I may.
Okay.
Our intention is to start construction of our community at the same time that we're building the road. Before construction of lot 1 or 2, blah, 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 the road shall be constructed. Again, it's our intention to construct both at the same time. We obviously would not get a CO if that road wasn't done.
Correct.
But we'd like to maybe tweak that language, if that's acceptable.
And of course, we would also defer to engineering for comments on that, but typically, because you're going to be reporting a plat as well, and I assume, I shouldn't assume, but if there is a bond or surety posted for improvements, then that's when I'm going to have to defer to Mr. Batson on whether or not the simultaneous construction, and then also Bill's very thankful that I did that to him. And then also building department, who's also represented, if that would be allowed.
Mr. Basson, would you like to speak to that at this time, please?
I wouldn't have a problem.
As long as proper surety was posted, all of that sort of thing. Also, Mr. McKenna, for your information, the city of Florence has very strict sidewalk and street tree requirements for subdivision. Are you aware of those?
We are.
Okay, very prepared to meet all of those conditions. Very good. Any other questions for the developer? Doctor?
This is a landlocked property. Approximately how many people would fit in that whole 93 acres, not just the 13, the entire 93? Because everybody has to come out the same way.
I cannot answer that because the balance of the property will have nothing to do with, and I don't know what the plans are for the balance of the property.
And I think that's where it becomes very important for a traffic study as well as the road being built adequately to, on the developer side, to take care of any approximate development, even, at a predicted build out. Yes, Ms.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, also, should the 13 acres be constructed, clearly when the balance of the property, if it were to be developed at a future date by anyone, there would be consideration taken for existing development. So, I don't know, my granddaddy used to say fools rush in to get the best seat, but, in some cases, if you're there first, then you're there first, and so, the requirements, we would not ask of a developer to do something we wouldn't ask of someone else or a different developer. So in this case, if, the traffic study is going to take into account the balance of that property being vacant, at a future date, if it develops, then the traffic study is gonna have to take into account whatever development would be proposed on the balance of the property in addition to what's already been built.
Correct, good point. Any other questions for the developer?
Mr. McKenna, you said there's 108 units.
Correct.
Are these single units, or is there a combination of number of people?
It's a combination of 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, and 5-bedroom units. Total of, I think the number's 420 bedrooms.
I noticed you had a lot of parking spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Mr. Black?